Turn the pages of history, ponder who can be considered the Hyder Ali of North America. Yes, you are right, George Washington can be considered as the Hyder Ali of North America. Even though Haider and Washington were contemporaries, but they never had an opportunity to contact or communicate with each other. The coincidence was both fought against a common enemy on different continents, and both shared a common ally. Mysoreans under Haider Ali and Patriot Americans under George were members of the coalition strategy of the French government. French saw the uprising in both the continents as a God-sent opportunity to humble Britain. French were losing ground in the Indian subcontinent and also in the American continent. The bitterness and resentment of Americans and Mysoreans against the British gave the French an opportunity to avenge their setback. As a part of their strategy to humble the British, the French government sent aid to the US and Mysoreans. French made every effort to unbalance the British military power in both continents. French efforts paid off, Americans won independence, and Mysoreans were able to put a hold on British expansion in India till the end of the century. Britain was keen on expanding its power globally. Subjugated founding fathers of the nation, like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, were keenly following Britain's enemies. They were closely following the struggle of Britain's enemies, so to inspire their struggle. The conflict of Mysoreans caught the attention of the Americans. Britain faced the toughest military challenge in their history by Mysoreans. There was hope in American camps that the Britain would lose to its global enemies. Lieutenant Gen of the French Army, Comte de Tresson, wrote a letter on 24 June 1777 to Benjamin Franklin to give detailed introduction of Hyder Ali. American patriots closely followed the events happening in South India. Second Anglo-Mysore War was meticulously followed by American revolutionaries. There were regular correspondence between the American revolutionaries and the French. They hoped for the defeat of England. They were fully aware of loss of European and Indian soldiers. The involvement of Colonel Bailey and Colonel Fletcher, and escape of Colonel Monroe. John Quincy Adams, who became America's sixth president in 1825, wrote a diary as a child. At 13, he wrote to his mother Abigail Adams from Leyden on April 8, 1781, about Hyder Ali's victories and mentioned the death of Colonel Fletcher and the capture of Colonel Bailey. Even in the 18th century, military and political events of Haider Ali and Tipu Sultan made an impact on lands and societies far away. The military strategies of Mysore kings shaped the views of American founding fathers. They adapted the Mysorean strategist in their independence struggle. Maistre de la Tour was a French officer of Haider Ali. He wrote a biography of Haider Ali that mentioned the events and the people associated with this warrior king. He even compared Tipu Sultan to Alexander. During the Revolutionary War and after achieving the independence, the Americans' fascination with Haider and his son and successor, Tipu Sultan, lived on. The names of Mysore rulers were common in American newspapers, poems, and everyday conversation. Different state governments also made friendly gestures toward Mysore. In 1781, the Pennsylvania legislature commissioned a warship named the Hyder Ali, an eccentrically spelled tribute to the Sultan of Mysore. This ship sailed the North Atlantic only, far from the Indian Ocean. Its existence, however, demonstrated the affinity American elites felt for Mysore's cause. Philip Freneau, an ally of Thomas Jefferson and one of the country's leading poets, wrote a poem in honor of the Hyder Ali and its namesake, the Sultan of Mysore. A wide range of Americans were eager to learn more about Mysore. American newspapers like Boston Gazette, Pennsylvania Journal, Massachusetts Spy, Connecticut Courant, and New York Journal and many others of the 1780s and 90s reported on the country's desperate struggle with Britain. American textbooks, including Jedediah Morse's influential The American Universal Geography, 1793, included sections on Mysore. Haider and Tipu seem to have approached the status of household names. In Williams versus Cabarrus 1793, a lawsuit brought before a circuit court in North Carolina, the two parties disputed a wager made on a horse race. One of the horses was named Hyder Ali, in tribute to Mysore's former ruler. Even in the wake of Tipu's final defeat, in 1799, his struggle for an independent Mysore continued to echo in the imagination of Americans. In his sermon on 4 July 1800, John Russell, a Baptist minister in Providence, warned his audience about the dangers of British imperialism. The founding generation and the children of the founders were fascinated with Mysore and its leaders because they thought Haider Ali and Tipu Sultan embodied American values of resistance to empire and aspiration to freedom. If later generations of Americans had continued to see Haider and Tipu as heroes, had continued to identify with underdogs and anti-imperial causes, then the US, and indeed the world, might look quite different today.